where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live, Friday, May 15th, 2020. Hope everybody's having an okay day and staying safe in these trying times. I've been a busy bee, doing a bunch of interviews, lining up some good guests for today as well as Sunday, because of course we provide the labor on Sunday as everybody else rests. We've been going live Sunday here for too long. Feeling it, but we got to do it. Sometimes there's too much misery, corruption, injustice for only 5 days a week. So we go live on Sundays, in part to raise money, which we'll get to. Quite a lot going on. Unfortunately, we are almost at 87,000 deaths related to coronavirus in the United States. 87,000 deaths. It's just horrendous. And when you listen to President Trump and his economic advisor, I saw this morning, folks, this is going to get a lot worse with these people in charge. It's really scary. I know the headline says Joy Reid, but we're going to start with Trump and his advisors because it's scary. A lot of more people are going to die than needed to die because of this administration. First, couple housekeeping. We've got 128 people watching. We only have 80 of you have pressed that like button. I need another however many of you. Please press the thumbs up button under the live stream. The more people that press that thumbs up button, the more people that will see the live stream. It is your patriotic duty to press the like button. So smash it. Also, you are not going to get a text today because Jen's out. She's on a socially distanced camping trip with her kids. Keyword, socially distanced, because needed to get her kids out of the house, obviously. Kids get a little restless after months and months of quarantine in home. So she's enjoying a little sunshine with her kiddies. So she would be the one to send out the text. On Sunday, we will send out a text. So make sure you join our text list. Text COUP to 370-370. That's 370-370. Type in COUP. Doesn't cost you anything. And you will get a text alert when we're live, which unfortunately, 9 times out of 10 these days, is the only notification you'll get because YouTube isn't notifying folks when we're live a lot of the time. So definitely join that text list. Follow us at Status Coup on Twitter. We're live there right now. Follow us on Twitch. We're live there right now, twitch.tv/Status Coup. And join our email list by going to statuscoup.com and entering your email there. I actually have been working on a story today, digging through the tangled web that is Joe Biden's healthcare donors. You know, just 36 million people have filed for unemployment in the last 2 months. Loose estimates of how many people are uninsured in America right now, probably somewhere around 50 million with the newly uninsured amid coronavirus. Add in underinsured, you probably have over 100 million people either uninsured or underinsured. Joe Biden still pushing expanding COBRA and restoring the sanctity of Obamacare. So I wanted to really do a deep dive into his healthcare donors. And boy, the deeper you dive, the worse the stench is. So I'll have that story for you, I believe, on Sunday for the Marathon live stream Sunday. Today we're going to go over a lot of things. I also have a guest. If you didn't know, there's been a complaint filed at the Federal Election Commission against a shady super PAC. A shady super PAC that was exclusively created and then shut down to take out Bernie Sanders after his momentum. So I interviewed somebody from the Campaign Legal Center who has filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission over this shady super PAC who has not disclosed its donors, which is illegal. So we will get to that. I want to start real quick. I don't know if you saw this, but it scares the living hell out of me. Let's look at Trump's economic advisor, Peter Navarro, this morning.
They have a national dialogue about
keeping people safe. So what you've just described is what happens if people get sick. So if people get sick and go to the hospital, you say that in the fall we'll have enough N95 masks, we'll have enough ventilators, we'll have enough gowns. What's being done nationally to keep people from getting sick? Because, I mean, I don't know, Peter, if you've seen the video from just yesterday in Wisconsin, but a bunch of people raced out to the nearest bar the second that the Wisconsin State Supreme Court lifted the stay-at-home orders. And I don't know, I mean, if you consider this keeping people safe, but they're not doing what we've been told is important in terms of social distancing and wearing masks. So what's the national plan to keep people safe?
I think we have to have a national dialogue about the costs and benefits of the lockdown. And, you know, the medical professionals, including Dr. Fauci, wants to keep the whole thing locked down and not send our children to school. You know, that's one way to do it.
I haven't heard Dr. Fauci say that. I didn't hear Dr. Fauci say don't send our children to school.
But
he didn't
be
say
that as it may, there is a point of view where keep it locked down until the virus is extinguished. That was not the original philosophy and strategy of locking things down. It was simply to flatten the curve. But here's the thing, Allison. We have to soberly weigh this abiding fact. The China virus kills people directly, so that if you lock everything down, the direct deaths are less. However, if you shut the economy down, you also kill people through alcoholism, drug abuse, opioid overdoses, depression, and what we saw, and I think this was one of the big mistakes, the closures of our hospitals to anything but COVID. Basically, people needed a heart or kidney or other kinds of treatment. It puts them at risk as well.
Understood. But I mean, I think that people are talking, including Dr. Fauci, about reopening smartly and how to keep people from getting sick smartly. I mean, so are you comfortable with what you saw in Wisconsin in those videos?
No, but I understand the frustration. First of all, I didn't see the video, so I think you're referring to somebody in bars. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, people are not socially distancing, and so look here. I have the new guidance, the new CDC guidelines.
Who am I to judge here in the White House? I think one of the problems is that this is split along party lines and people are too judgmental.
No, but Peter, to be clear, I'm not asking you to judge. Hold on a second. I'm not asking you to judge. I'm asking you what the plan is. What are the specific guidelines now that we reopen this weekend?
How do you feel now? Feel like the Trump administration has stuff under control? Thank you for the super chat. Swirly Swirl getting us started today. $5. Sometimes I feel like YouTube creators need a union. Swirly Swirl, we need beyond a union. Us YouTube creators. It's disgusting what YouTube is doing. But I'm in a good mood, so I'm not going to rant about it now, but maybe I'll rant about YouTube on Sunday. Thank you for the $5. By the way, I was remiss. I forgot. Still going with our GoFundMe. Thank you, Lawrence Johnson. Just gave us $10 in the GoFundMe. Thank you, Anonymous. $25 in the GoFundMe. We're now at $101,248. By my math, we are less than $9,000 away from our ultimate goal. Just to give you a little update, I told our folks in the members only call the other night, so I won't tell you everything because members get the extra dirt. But in our members only call last night, I talked about 2 purchases we just made thanks to raising money in the GoFundMe. We did raise enough money to purchase the top of the line live view, which is the mobile device we use to go live in the field. We had basically the second to best one, which was not good enough to go live flawlessly. We just ordered the top of the line live view 600. Normally would be a lot more than we got it for, but because everybody's hurting, you kind of could get things at a discount right now. So we got this live view for $8,000. Which we were not going to be able to do unless we raised more money in the GoFundMe. We also purchased a new laptop for me, which will be here, I believe, in a week and a half. And so thank you. Keep it coming in the GoFundMe, because our next order of business is to pour a lot of money into advertising. Because of the YouTube suppression, we have to advertise. So please, if you have a couple bucks, of course, if you don't have a couple bucks, we totally understand. With the economic despair going on, it's, a lot of people can't donate, but even if you can donate $5, makes a huge difference. So keep it coming. I think we've shown you as we've raised money, we spend it on reporting, not like others who ask you to give them money and then don't do what they said. So thank you, L. Harris, $10. David Sirota nailed it when he called the Republicans the Harlem Globetrotters and the Democrats the Washington Generals. Oh, I didn't hear him say that. That is smart. It's a good one for Sirota. Mr. Methuselah, $20. Billionaires need their slave workers back to work so they can accelerate their complete acquisition of the planet. Couldn't agree more. And by the way, we're trying to trademark the United Corporations of America. So if we get that trademarked, you get ready for the shirts, hats, koozies, bikinis. I'm talking everything United Corporations of America. Stay tuned. So Peter Navarro, Trump's advisor, goes on CNN and basically laughs at a bar opening in Wisconsin where people aren't wearing masks. They're kind of sitting on top of each other. Listen, would I love to go to a bar right now, take a few honey whiskey shots? I do like maple whiskey for my friends in Canada. A couple Coronas, maybe dance a little 90s music. Would I love that? Absolutely. I would love it. I am getting restless here, and I'm not even a drunk. Not that you're a drunk to go to a bar. Everybody enjoys a good cocktail now and then. But, I'm not a doctor, but does alcohol occasionally weaken the immune system? Talking to my girlfriend. Yeah. So if there's a deadly virus going on and immunocompromised people are even more at risk, but even people with strong immune systems, because people have died that are athletes, that exercise, blah, blah, blah. Maybe going to a bar, getting drunk, not wearing a mask while you're doing this is weakening your immune system.
They deliver alcohol. They could be drinking at home.
Right, they deliver alcohol. She's so smart. So so put that aside, that's crazy. I have done some twerking in my day, Joe. Maybe once we get to $110,000, our goal on the GoFundMe, I will do twerking with my Joe Biden glasses on. I really hate that people say these are like Joe Biden because I like the sunglasses. I've had a couple people say, Jordan, you look like Joe Biden. Oh well. You like these sunglasses? Yeah. There you go. So I will twerk with the sunglasses at $110,000. So what's amazing to me, then you have this insane nonsense. Well, more people might die staying home because they'll get depressed and opioids and alcohol and suicide. Like people aren't committing suicide and opioid overdosing and wildly depressed and anxious before the pandemic. People aren't, depression and anxiety are up, particularly with everybody's routines out of whack, everybody not able to get out and go to the gym and see your friends and your family and do your routine. But is he really? He just made the argument that, Same amount of people might die if we stay home from, Jordan, please don't. The same amount of people might die if we leave people at home from opioids and suicides. Okay, Dr. Navarro, where did you get your medical training in mental health? This is what I'm talking about with the capitalist death cult. This is a capitalist death cult. We should have locked down the economy for 3 weeks to a month federally and not had each state doing its own thing. I understand the civil libertarian people out there that say, Jordan, that's too much, but that's what should have been done. You don't mess around and go state by state, city by city, town by town with a deadly virus. Poopy cakes, 2 pounds. Did you ever do your exercise video? Yeah, I did. Didn't I show that to people?
I don't know if you showed it. I know I filmed it.
All right. If I didn't show it, then we will broadcast it very soon, Poopy Cakes, because I'm a man of my word. And I did do an exercise video, and I think it was very good. So basically, Trump is saying, to hell with it. You know, everything will be fine. The virus will just go away once the hot weather comes, because we know he went to the University of Phoenix online for his medical degree. And now you have Peter Navarro. And by the way, all of them, notice, Dr. Fauci has been backbenched. The only person with the proper level of caution, him and Dr. Birx. So Trump, because he's a moron and he's only listening to his donors and corporate America who want the economy reopened. I don't know how you reopen an economy if you don't have enough customers. How do you have enough customers when people are getting laid off, people are having their hours cut, furloughs? But what he's doing right now is not only going to result in a massive uptick in the virus. What it's going to do, we're going to be forced to go back to the future or back to the past. We're going to be forced to do what we did 2 months ago, which is stay-at-home orders across the country. Viruses don't die if people start congregating together, particularly with the weather getting better. People are not only going to be congregating, but drinking and smoking and all these things. And I'm not trying to sound like your, tight-ass mother or father when you were a teenager saying stay off the weed. I'm not talking about that. But during a deadly virus, which is still very active, and we still have several states, according to data, where the cases are increasing, and most states where the cases have been steady and staying the same, this whole policy of Trump and Navarro and the Republicans and some Democrats to just let's close our eyes and, pray, thoughts and prayers, and, if we just pray to Jesus enough, the virus will leave. It ain't going to work. I know people want to get back to the bars and work and this and that, but we don't even know, and I don't even know since I've had it, if people can contract coronavirus twice. The jury's out on that. I just read that article the other day. There's people contracting it twice. And this isn't a political issue, by the way. This isn't because I don't like Trump. It's certainly not because I like Biden. But you either care about getting reelected and you don't care about the death count, or you care a little bit about saving lives. Trump obviously doesn't give a damn about how many lives he saves. And the thing that is most troubling is not only doesn't care, but again, everything they're doing right now is counter to their goal. Trump's goal is to quote, I built the greatest economy ever, which he didn't. The economy sucked. The stock market does not equate to Main Street. The economy has sucked for 30 years in this country. It's been great for 1 to 5% of the people and horrific for the rest of us. But Trump's whole thing, well, I built the best economy and I'm going to build it again soon. He's trying to show the electorate around summer, fall, that the economy has some improving signs heading into November. But what you're going to do is end up soliciting the Great Depression because, Jordan, you keep swiping your nose, going to get the virus again. TMI, I think I have a booger, and I'm trying to get rid of it. But thank you, Kelly. You're right. I've been washing my hands quite a lot. So, do not make a meme of me just picking my nose, whoever was thinking of doing that. So, by the way, we got 300 people, almost 300 people watching. 193 people have liked. I need another 100 of you. Please smash the thumbs up button. It's right under the live stream. Even if you don't like me, just fake it till you make it. Makes a big difference. More people that like, the more people that will see this very live stream. So, all I have to say is this capitalist death cult. Did Jordan really have a Corona? LOL, a booger? I do have 2 Coronas left in the fridge. They are at a discount right now for anyone who likes Corona. For folks, I understand it's tantalizing right now. The weather here in New York is nice, maybe by you. But don't do what the people at that bar in Wisconsin did. Don't do what Trump and these Rand Paul, who, Rand Paul thinks he's, as an eye doctor, has greater medical expertise than Dr. Anthony Fauci. Did you see that hearing where Rand Paul says, well, you're not the greatest. You're not the be-all, end-all. Who the fuck does Rand Paul think he is? Who the fuck does the Republicans think they are? Peter Navarro. Well, you could die from staying in more than you could die from going out. This kind of idiocy, post-factual America, post-truth, is going to kill a lot of people that don't need to be killed. And just so you know, it isn't just the elderly at risk, folks. There's young people dying. There's middle-aged people dying. So, I'm just telling you, I have a smart audience, but please, I'm not saying you have to stay in your home at all times, but please, don't go to bars without a mask. Don't binge drink at bars. Keep social distance from people. If you're going outside, whether it's to a park, camping, whatever, masks, distance. This is still highly active, and the Republicans and Trump and his advisors are willingly telling you to go out there, let's restart America. Trump's saying, oh, most people that get it don't even feel it. This false sense of comfort that they're trying to provide you because they are the capitalist death cult could get you killed. And I know a lot of you are smarter than to trust Trump and Republicans, but a lot of people will trust what they're saying. I binge drink at home. That's what I'm saying. Just binge drink at home. Put on Netflix. Put on a good, my girlfriend has been forcing me to watch 90 Day Fiancé.
You like it.
I don't like it. 90 Day Fiancé. Whatever your thing is. If you want something light, there's plenty of trash shows. If you want something serious, I recommend Oliver Stone's Untold History of the United States on Netflix. Very good. I'm also watching Money Heist. If you could deal with subtitles, it's in Spanish, but it's really a thriller. All right, let's move on. Now that we got rid of Trump. So, 300 people watching, by the way. And let me make sure I don't miss any GoFundMes. Whoa! Holy cow! Thank you, Anonymous, $18. Thank you, Kelly, $5. Thank you, Andrea, $25. We are now at $101,296. I think that would be, I'm terrible at math, $700 away? About $700 away from $102,000. Oh, I missed a super chat? Holy cow. What did I miss? Swirly Swirl, $50. Thank you, Swirly Swirl. It really saddens me to see the difference between my grandparents. Both grandfathers are very high risk. One is taking it very seriously, won't even let family members visit without masks. The other wanting to go out to eat for my grandma's birthday. Aw, that is cute, but dangerous. Swirly Swirl, make sure that grandpa doesn't go out to eat for your grandma's birthday. Maybe go outside on the porch if he has one with grandma. Eat, and the family maybe could come over and wave. I know that sounds corny, but I've seen video of people doing that on elderly people's birthday. I hope your grandfather and grandma don't go out for her birthday right now. That's very, very dangerous. So I want to switch And by the way, Matthew, I don't like 90 Day Fiance. I don't like it. She loves it. I watch it for her. It's not. I don't watch it on my own. Let's get that straight. So, I'm starting to see a trend here. And I know people, have criticisms of Bernie Sanders and what he's doing now. I do as well. But I'm starting to see suddenly that now that Bernie Sanders is no longer in the race, I'm starting to see this pattern where very, very untoward things that were happening while he was in the race are suddenly not happening anymore. For example, I covered the CNN poll the other day that, if you weren't watching, Iceberg, Donald Trump has a higher favorability rating right now than Joe Biden among people under the age of 50. No, this isn't The Onion. CNN poll, Donald Trump, 44% favorability, voters under 50. Biden, 40% unfavorability. When it comes to over 50, Trump, even 49 favorable, 49 unfavorable. Biden, slightly ahead. But this number, my God, you're at 40% favorable rating under 50? All I got to say, Iceberg, right ahead. So, but in this poll, just magically, because remember, Jen and I reported on it throughout the primary, they could never do polls that equally did an equal distribution of voters over 50 polled versus voters under 50 polled. They were always wildly oversampling voters over 50, which gives you a skewed perspective because obviously if you're oversampling older voters, Bernie is always going to do weaker in the polls. But this CNN poll, as I told you the other day, all of a sudden they find enough voters under the age of 50, and it's a pretty even distribution. Voters over 50, voters under 50. They even called more people on cell phones than landlines, which in the most of the polls that went on when it was just Bernie versus Biden, Buttigieg, and the rest of the gang, they never were able to call more cell phones than landlines. Now, suddenly they are. Isn't that interesting? Bernie's out. Now they could do polling that has some integrity to it. But I'm a little late to this because this was a few days ago, but I watched this clip with Joy-Ann Reid. And my God, it's almost like now that Bernie's out, Joy sounds like she's starting to see the light. Let me know what you think of Joy and the way she's talking here.
Progressives in the House have been very much for Medicare for all, where if there's anything that's made and other progressives in the House have been very much for Medicare for all, where if there's anything that's made the case for separating insurance from employment and making the two stand alone so that business owners wouldn't have to worry about having to fund it and people wouldn't have to worry about losing it when something like this happens. Do you see movement? I mean, I don't know if you've had conversations with Joe Biden about this, but it feels like that case is being made every day.
It feels like that case is being made every day, Joy Reid says. What? The case is being made now? That so many people are losing their health insurance? But the case wasn't being made before the coronavirus pandemic? When 30 million people were unemployed? Uninsured? Millions more underinsured? The case wasn't made when General Motors workers went on strike and General Motors took away their health insurance temporarily? But now suddenly, it's Biden versus Trump. MSNBC, owned by Comcast, is in a win-win position. Either you get Trump reelected for 4 years, which equals lots of ratings for MSNBC and NBC, or you get Biden reelected, or Biden elected for 4 years, which equals ratings for MSNBC and NBC. Also, parent company Comcast, they got an army of lobbyists. They've held fundraisers for Joe Biden. They also lobby the Trump administration and get a lot of goodies. So now that Bernie is out and the progressive threat is gone, they're actually able to have real topical discussions. And maybe Joy Reid is allowed to state the obvious that was obvious before the coronavirus pandemic. I'm just going to play this one more time. You tell me, am I being a little dramatic, or do you hear what I'm hearing, which is Joy Reid essentially completely moonwalking on Medicare for all?
Other progressives in the House have been very much for Medicare for all, where if there's anything that's made the case for separating insurance from employment and making the two stand alone so that business owners wouldn't have to worry about having to fund it and people wouldn't have to worry about losing it when something like this happens. Do you see movement? I mean, I don't know if you've had conversations with Joe Biden about this, but it feels like that case is being made every day.
I think that case is being made every day for why we should not.
So she said two things there, if you couldn't hear. She said, if anything's making the case for separating health insurance from employment, I think the coronavirus pandemic is making that case. And then she said, it feels like that case is being made every day. But wait a minute, and I don't want to belittle, obviously we have an acute situation here, a very acute situation here. According to Economic Policy Institute, roughly 16.2 million more Americans lost their employer-sponsored health insurance. Now, obviously 36 million people have filed unemployment claims, so it's anywhere between 17 million and 36 million who have lost their health insurance. Not every single person who has lost their job was getting health care from their employer. Some people choose not to get health care from their employer because they can't afford the deductions from their paycheck. But the bottom line is, right now, you got tens of millions of people now who have lost their health insurance. Why are you torturing us, Jordan? There's a method to the madness. Have a corona at home while I'm torturing you, if it's that bad. So, this is manufacturing consent reversed. Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, Hardball Chris, who's no longer on MSNBC, thank the Lord, Morning Joe, CNN, The Washington Post, The New York Times, all of them, when the progressives were saying exactly what she just said for the last 5 years, saying you don't have security with employer-sponsored health care, when Pete Buttigieg, that fucking asshole, excuse my French, swear jar, was going around with these big pharma talking points, oh, Bernie Sanders trying to rip healthcare out of the hands of 160 million people who just love their private health insurance. When all of these people were calling it a big government takeover. When all these people were talking for you, the American people, saying people love their private employer healthcare plans. What is now apparently obvious to Joy Reid was pretty obvious to most objective, not bought, not purchased people. It was pretty obvious to everybody before the coronavirus pandemic. It was obvious that 30 million people didn't have health insurance. Tens of millions of more people underinsured. Employers using healthcare as a punishment against employees who went on strike. Look at General Motors, who went on strike. General Motors took away their health insurance. They gave it back at the last minute, but originally they stopped paying for their health insurance. But now Joy Reid, her eyes are opening. And by the way, I want to be clear on something. I'm not against, and as progressives, we should not be against, genuine evolution. If somebody like Joy Reid, Morning Joe, gas bags at the Washington Post, genuinely evolve to see the light, okay, you should have been there in the first place, but we'll take it, right? But the key word is genuinely. because we don't want to, we want to keep our circle open. We want to invite new people into the progressive movement, even people, I use Peter Dow as an example. Peter Dow was a real hellbot in 2016, was, living and dying for the Hillary Clinton campaign. I don't know if he worked for the campaign or whatever, but he was big on Twitter, going after the Bernie bros, and, was all climbing up woke back mountain with the rest of them. But since then, he has seen the light. He has evolved, and he has become a fierce guy, a fierce fighter for progressive causes like Medicare for All, Green New Deal, calling out his former friends in the neoliberal circle. And that was a genuine evolution. And I applaud Peter Dow. I'd love to have him on. But when you see people like Joy Reid suddenly seeing the light, do you think it's genuine? Or do you think now people like Joy Reid could actually tell the truth because there's no actual threat of a progressive taking the White House? I think it's the latter. I don't think Joy Reid has suddenly seen the light. My guess is she felt this way all along. My guess is most people that spew these corporate propaganda talking points about Medicare for All, deep down in their hearts, know it's a good idea, know it's more efficient, know it would save money, know it would save the government money, know it would save lives. But because they're part of the revolving door and the neoliberal order, they can't say the truth. You want to know how I know this? Because 20 years ago, Nancy Pelosi stood up in front of the Capitol talking about single-payer Medicare for all and why we need it. Joe Biden, years ago, Kyle Kalinske found video of this, said, I don't think he called it Medicare for all, but he said single-payer is what we need. Suddenly now, when you're the Speaker of the House getting oodles and oodles of money from Big Pharma, oodles and oodles of money from Wall Street that's heavily invested in private health insurance and Big Pharma, oodles and oodles of money from hedge funds that are up to their eyeballs invested in private health insurance, suddenly it's a big government takeover. Arlene Chambers, $25 for the swear jar. Thank you, Arlene. Appreciate it. By the way, the GoFundMe's still going strong. Appreciate donations there too. JK, $5. Would love to see you interview Peter Dow. I've never seen anything like that, someone turning Hillbot to full lefty. It's funny, Anat brought that up the other day. Have you ever tried to interview Peter Dow? And I haven't. So I went to look at his direct messages to send him a DM so I could ask him for an interview, and they're closed. So I got to find his contact to see if he'll do an interview. But it's a good idea. And I'm curious what shifts somebody like Peter Dow. I'm not criticizing him, but what shifts somebody like Peter Dow from such a blinded position that, we could only accept crumbs. I love the slow diet of gradualism, how Hillbots think, to being a true blue burner progressive. I really would love to know. So I will definitely try to get his contact and reach out. Gene, $9.99 in the super chat. Thank you, Gene. So this level of intellectual dishonesty, this level, because Joy Reid, let me tell you something. I don't know her heart. I don't know her head. She has lied quite a lot in the past. I'm still waiting for that FBI investigation on her blogs, her blog posts from the 2000s, her homophobic blog posts. She says she was hacked. She didn't write that. Yeah, the FBI was investigating. I'm still waiting for the results of that FBI investigation. But it's just sad, because if Joy Reid would have spoken honestly, like she's speaking right now to Congresswoman Jayapal, if she would have talked about the tens of millions of people that don't have health care, the millions more before coronavirus, if she would have talked like this during the campaign and just given her audience, mostly of older people, the true facts about Medicare for all, then voters could make informed decisions. Because most voters, even a lot of them that chose Biden over Bernie, still were for Medicare for all. Every primary state, the exit polls showed, even Mississippi, for God's sakes, were for Medicare for all. But people like Joy Reid programmed those same voters that were for Medicare for all to think Bernie's extreme, he's unelectable, Biden's the safe choice, Biden's the electable choice, and now, unfortunately, the chickens are coming home to roost. Is this electability to you? Again, CNN poll. the battleground states, the 15 states that will decide this election. Let me give you the map showing the states. Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada. Joe Biden, voters under 50, has a lower favorability rate than Donald Trump himself. That ain't going to get you 270 electoral votes. I can tell you that. Not going to do it. So I'll monitor so you don't have to, because I don't want you guys to get sick. I watch CNN and MSNBC so you don't have to, which is another reason you should support Status Coup in the GoFundMe. Just saying. I will keep monitoring Joy Reid and other folks on MSNBC and CNN and see if we could find any other sudden epiphanies that, yeah, not such a good idea to have healthcare tied to employment, particularly with pandemics on the horizon, particularly with climate catastrophe. What's going to happen in 2-3 years when the climate inferno is here and the same thing happens? People can't work, people can't travel, people might be flooded in their own towns. You're going to see mass layoffs. What are we going to do then? Well, Joe Biden tells us, Nancy Pelosi tells us, well, we'll expand COBRA. The COBRA criminal wet kiss private health insurance system for people that get laid off. COBRA. Psh. Which brings me to segue. By the way, we got 340 people watching. 291 of you have pressed that like button. Please press the like button. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. Finally, we're getting some tepid, but still, we're getting a little bit of a progressive resistance here. Nancy Pelosi's $3 trillion bill to nowhere. It doesn't even matter, this bill, because Trump's not going to sign it, but it's a messaging bill. $3 trillion, $1 trillion going to states and cities. I'm going to do an interview with somebody soon to show you why that whole $1 trillion to states and cities, not what you think it is. Trust me, federal money that's earmarked to states and cities, 9 out of 10 times, you might be lucky if a quarter of the money that the federal government has earmarked actually gets to the final destination. We'll get to that another time. So it usually gets diverted to donors, real estate developers, and all the usual suspects. But in response to Nancy Pelosi's $3 trillion bill, which includes a bailout for lobbyists, which includes a reduction of the SALT cap, which is basically going to give a tax cut to wealthy Democrats. Ro Khanna says, I am voting no on this rule. We have a healthcare crisis, yet no expansion of Medicaid or Medicare. FDR didn't talk about employer retirement accounts. Lyndon B. Johnson didn't talk about voting rights in some precincts. They would have scoffed at COBRA to private companies. We need bold leadership. Ilhan Omar. Did I not enter that? Let me find Ilhan's tweet. Excuse me. I'm a no on today's rule vote. In the biggest crisis since the Great Depression, we should be leading with bold ideas that meet the scale of the crisis. That's Ilhan Omar. The other no votes, and this would be a rule change that would allow this $3 trillion bill, which, by the way, in addition to bailouts for lobbyists, a tax rollback that helps wealthy Democrats, they also watered down the student loan relief provisions. The student loan relief provisions were supposed to be larger, but then Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Republicans pretending to be progressives said, oh, I think this is going to cost too much. So they drastically reduced the provisions that would give relief for people with student loans. So no problem giving $4 trillion to $6 trillion, give or take, the estimates in the first bill are between 4 and 6 trillion. We could afford that, to give $4 to $6 trillion to big corporations, but we got to scale back relief for student loans and students while giving taxpayer-funded bailout money to lobbyists on K Street. The other no's: AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan, Ayanna Pressley, Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, Katie Porter. Don't know the first name of Garcia. Don't know Connor Lamb, I believe that is. Something Finkenhauer, Axney, Spanberger. And by the way, the ones he starred are actually moderates. So even some moderates got into this, and Stevens. So, you know, the progressives that should be on there are on there. I'd like to know, is Tulsi Gabbard still a member of Congress or not?
Tulsi who?
Because I see a lot of people on YouTube just bashing Bernie Sanders left and right. Oh, he's a sellout. Bernie's a fraud. Bernie's a this. Bernie's a that. A coward. But I don't see them going after Tulsi Gabbard, who's been quiet as a mouse during this pandemic. Does anybody watching? I don't want to, trigger our Tulsi stands here, but I don't see Tulsi Gabbard on that list voting no against this monstrosity. Shocking. Somebody said Tulsi is a senator. This is a House vote, House of Representatives. Last time I checked, Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman. Yes, Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman. So I'm just saying, let's be consistent. If we're going to call Bernie all these things, and hey, I think Bernie deserves criticism. I've been criticizing him. But I don't agree with people whose new political jihad seems to be Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is not the ultimate problem. And what the oligarchy wants to do, what the plutocrats thrive on, what corporations thrive on, what intelligence operations thrive on, is divide and conquer. They want to divide the left. And certain people are helping that cause by laser focusing on Bernie Sanders as the problem. Was he weak during the campaign? Yes. I said it during the campaign. I criticized him during the campaign. Is he messing up now? Yes. But you know what? Let's take a pause from all this high school and middle school foolishness. Oh, he's a sellout. He's a coward. Yeah? Let me ask you a question. These people saying this, what the fuck have they done that's so brave? Have they done so much in their lives? Did these people calling Bernie Sanders a coward on Twitter and on YouTube, did they force Jeff Bezos to give Amazon workers a $15 minimum wage? Was that them? These brave souls who were so wise and brave and better than Bernie Sanders? Are they responsible for Disney workers getting $15 minimum wage? Did they hold up Obamacare and hold it hostage and would have taken it down? If not, basically forced Obama to put $9 billion in there for community health centers? Bernie Sanders got $9 billion into Obamacare. But all these people who are pissed off and angry, rightfully so right now, are listening to people on YouTube and Twitter, and there's a lot of hosts talking like this who, oh, he's a coward, he's a sellout. Yeah? What the fuck have you done? There's nothing wrong with criticizing Bernie Sanders. He's not above criticism, and I do criticism. But spare me to the people who have been on the bandwagon for Bernie. Oh, they've enjoyed the bandwagon. Bernie's gotten them a lot of quick clicks and Twitter follows, whatever. But the minute he does some things you don't like, all of a sudden, Bernie Sanders is a worse threat than Donald Trump. Oh my God, I'm listening to some people go on and go on. It's deranged. So he endorsed Joe Biden. Guess what? He said from the beginning he was going to endorse the Democratic nominee. You don't like it? Okay, but that's what he said he was going to do. It's not a surprise. I don't like how he did it. I don't think he should have done it when he did it. I think he should have actually got something for it. I think he should have organized his massive email list and organized the troops that he has for things like a rent strike, a mortgage strike, a general strike. Now's the time to do that. But just because somebody isn't doing exactly what you want 100% of the time doesn't make them a sellout. And frankly, the people doing that are frankly radicalizing impressionable minds, are irresponsible. And I'd like to know from these people tweeting this, I'd like to know from hosts saying this, what the fuck have you done in your life? What do you do? Are you so brave? Because a lot of people doing this right now, they make good money. These people saying, Bernie should have stopped the first corporate bailout bill. He should have stopped it dead on its track. Oh yeah? Are you so brave? The people saying that? Even though that bill was a shitstorm and a shit sandwich and it was terrible. Are you so brave that you would have chose to fight the war then? When you, by delaying that bill, if Bernie Sanders delayed that bill, if he filibustered that bill, you're going to be the one that delays even further millions of people who cannot afford to miss a paycheck, who will lose their homes, who will go under. You're going to be the one that stops them from getting unemployment and delays their unemployment checks. And a lot of them haven't even gotten it yet. You're going to delay it further so you could make a point? You're going to delay their $1,200 check? No, it's not enough. I agree it's not enough. You're going to delay it so you could make a point? Well, if you're that brave, if you have that big of balls, the people saying this, then why don't you run for office? But I'll be damned. I'm a journalist. I'm not a hero worshiper. I do personally support Bernie. I've always been open about that, but I don't worship Bernie. That's why I criticize him when it's appropriate. But I can't stand people in the progressive media. I can't stand people, even people I like, by the way, on Twitter and these other places. Suddenly, oh my God, I was sucking Bernie's cock for 5 years and preying off Bernie and preying off Bernie to get a big audience. And now he's not doing exactly what I want, so I'm so brave. I'm so brave. And I'm such a fighter that from the comfy confines of Twitter and YouTube comments and YouTube and wherever these people saying it, because it's not just one person, I'm seeing a lot of people saying this. Yeah, if you're that brave, if you're that consistent, if you're that much of a gladiator, then why don't you get in the ring and run for office? Because the only thing you're doing right now is dividing people, is radicalizing people. The enemy is not Bernie Sanders, okay? Is he doing shit that I don't agree with? Yes. But I'll tell you who the real enemies are. It's Nancy Pelosi. It's Chuck Schumer. Because really what the Democratic Party has become is the getaway car for the Republican robbers. The Republicans are robbing the Treasury. They're robbing our planet. And the Democrats are kind of in for the ride. They're waiting outside for Mitch McConnell to come with the bank. Come with the bag with the money. And they're driving away. Just joined via Patreon. And I didn't even plan on doing this rant. But I got to tell you something. I said to Anat last night, I was watching something. I won't say what I was watching. And I was just disgusted. Because I got to tell you something. And I'm not someone who brags about myself often, but here's a humble brag. I have busted my ass far more than most of these people on YouTube the last 5 years. Most of these people on YouTube, frankly, work a few hours a day. I've been to 40 states, okay? I've sacrificed holidays. I've worked 7 days a week for 2 years to build this company with Jen. I have been in the trenches where a lot of these people just tweet and talk. Nothing wrong with people who do commentary or people that live on Twitter. I'm not criticizing them. But I actually walk the walk. I go out in the field. I speak with the American people. I speak with a lot of downtrodden black people, a lot of downtrodden brown people, a lot of downtrodden indigenous people, a lot of downtrodden white people. And I can tell you, for the people saying Bernie's a sellout, for the people saying Bernie's a fraud, he's a coward, he's a joke, he's a this, he's a that, yeah? Well, why don't you leave Twitter, get off Twitter for a second, get out of your studios, And why don't you go in the trenches and you speak with these people and you tell them, hey, you're not going to get your unemployment check. It's going to be delayed. You're not going to get your $1,200 check because I want to make a point and I'm going to delay the bill for weeks. You go do that from the comfy confines of Twitter. And by the way, I don't really give a damn if I lose subscribers over this because I've seen in the past few days I'm losing subscribers. I don't really care. This isn't about defending Bernie or criticizing Bernie. Honestly, it ain't even really about Bernie to me. This is about a mindset. And I've seen this since 2016. People were screaming, Bernie's a sellout because he endorsed Hillary Clinton. You know what? I don't like that he endorsed Hillary Clinton. I don't think he should have. But you want to know something? The same people that were calling him a sellout after he endorsed Hillary Clinton came running back to Bernie and were back on the train when he ran again. Isn't that interesting? And I got news for you. The same people calling Bernie Sanders a sellout right now, when Bernie Sanders finally comes to his senses and organized strikes and this and that, oh, they'll be back. I cut my TYT membership in half and gave the other half to Status Coup. Woohoo! Don't even get me started on that. But thank you for that. And keep the GoFundMe coming if you like my rant. So I'll just say this. I think there's, totally fine among progressives to disagree. We don't have to always agree. I think this mindset of like, if you're not as fire-breathing as me, if you're not as pissed off as me, if you don't agree with me 100% of the time, you're a fucking sellout. Go back to high school if you think that way. And by the way, to viewers who want to unsubscribe because your views aren't 100% regurgitated back to you, please unsubscribe and go watch Fox News where you belong, because that's a Fox News viewer mindset. If I literally was emailing with a viewer, because I do respond to viewer emails quite a lot, and a viewer was raking me over the calls for not specifically calling Bernie Sanders a sellout. And I was writing an essay to this guy because I was so angry. And you want to know something? We had a back and forth. If you're watching, you could say who you are. I won't say your name. By the end of it, he said, "You just got a new subscriber and a paid member," because I didn't think about it. Because I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, Jordan.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with criticizing Bernie. He was weak as fucking weak during the campaign. I was saying it since 2016. Take off the gloves against Hillary Clinton. Take off the gloves against Biden. Stop calling him your friend. Go after the guy. He's lying about his civil rights record. He's lying about being arrested in apartheid South Africa. He's lying. He never he never joined civil rights sit-ins. He palled around with Strom Thurmond to push busing. And Bernie wouldn't do it. And I criticized him. I'm not a Bernie bro. I criticize him have you seen Bernie Sanders ever do an interview with me? I don't prostitute myself for access. But what's unbelievable to me is these same people, and again, it's not just one person, but these same people who suddenly are on a political jihad against Bernie Sanders because they see the clicks, and they're just pissed off and it doesn't matter to them if they're being responsible or saying something right. Oh, when it's Tulsi Gabbard who's being corrupt and an actual sellout, oh, we can't say anything. There's plenty of people that basically for the last year have had their heads so far up Tulsi Gabbard's ass they can't see straight. And I happen to like Tulsi Gabbard. I like her foreign policy views. But you want to know something? I was one of the few during the campaign that called her out because she was doing and hobnobbing and having private little fundraisers with Anthony Scaramucci and other Wall Street hedge funders here in New York. So are we only going to criticize Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris and the corporate Democrats for hobnobbing and playing footsie with Wall Street bankers? But when Tulsi Gabbard does it because her campaign is flailing and she needs money, we shouldn't criticize her? I pointed that out to several Tulsi bros, or whatever you would call them, and they just closed their eyes and counted to 10. and they didn't say anything about it. I got attacked for the audacity to criticize Tulsi Gabbard for voting present during impeachment. You want to be president, but you can't vote yes or no? Her little reasoning for voting president was bullshit. Voting present was bullshit. And again, this is somebody I like, but I mean, I've seen people who are bashing Bernie till they're blue in the face that were soft as silk on Tulsi Gabbard. Let me tell you something. If Bernie Sanders ever did a fundraiser and had private meetings with Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, a hedge funder, and other Wall Street hedge funders, I think these people would be saying something. Somebody said, I don't know what you fed Jordan today. I actually haven't eaten much today. But the bottom line, let me wrap this up. And I don't really care if I lose subscribers. I don't care if this pisses off people. We're not going to go anywhere as a progressive movement if we take our eye off the ball. And we have selective amnesia in America, because the same people calling Bernie a sellout, yeah? Well, show me where the nationally organized progressive movement was in 2014. You show me what the nationally organized progressive movement was in 2014. Where was it? Somebody told me the other day, Jordan, stop lying, Occupy was around. Occupy was 2011. It was wonderful, it was great. I went there, I did a little drugs.
What?
Occupy was great, and I think Occupy set a lot of the conditions for something like Bernie to happen. But after Occupy, people went back to sleep. Yeah, there was Black Lives Matter, Fight for 15, Medicare for All, climate groups, the Green Party, but there wasn't a nationally. Somebody said, how do you join Status Coup Premium? I like what you're thinking. Statuscoup.com/join. Let me put the membership link in for folks.
It's a status slayer, I think.
Statuscoup.com/join. There's the link. We definitely need members to grow this thing, and I will be live on Sunday and just as righteous. Bernie Sanders is the reason we even have an energized progressive movement. Yeah, there's a lot of people pissed off right now. But those people that pissed off were part of the people that were asleep before Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is 70, as a 70-something-year-old, has barnstormed the country for the last 5 years. Instead of spending time with his grandchildren, he has gone around the country, not because he woke up as a child with the dream to be president. He tried to get Warren to run against Hillary Clinton. He didn't want to run for president, but he ran not for himself, not because he's a power-hungry little shit like Pete Buttigieg. He ran because he cares about working people. He ran because he cares about the downtrodden. Now, we might not agree with his current decisions. We might not agree with his current strategy. We might not agree with the live streams videos he's doing with Biden that resemble more like hostage-taking videos. We might not agree with him not showing up for a key vote on a privacy surveillance bill, which I reached out to his campaign yesterday to ask, because it doesn't seem like anyone asked this question. Maybe he didn't show up because he's 78 years old and just had a heart attack and there's a deadly pandemic going on. Did Jeremy Scahill wonder that before he tweeted about it? Maybe he, as a 78-year-old who had a heart attack recently and is in the highest risk group that could get coronavirus, is a little nervous about showing up and traveling right now. Now, we could make the argument, as some did on Twitter, that he needs to resign his position because he can't do his job. That's a fair argument. But did anyone wonder? Maybe he didn't show up for this vote because he has a serious pre-existing condition. He had a heart attack recently. He's 78. There's a deadly virus going around. Jesus, these people have lost their fucking mind. And I really have to say this, and maybe I have a little chip on my shoulder because I actually get in the trenches and I go out in the field. Not when a story's breaking. Most stories I cover are not breaking. I cover stories because they're important and they're not getting any attention. And that's probably why I'll never be a millionaire, and I don't need to be a millionaire. But it really makes me sick to see people on Twitter, on YouTube, on all these things, losing their fucking minds. I'm not the tone police. There's free speech. So if people with large platforms and large followings wanna call Bernie a coward and a sellout and a joke and a fraud, and by all means. But what I'll say to those people, yeah, where were you at Standing Rock? Where were you in Flint? Were you at Occupy Wall Street? Have you done the work that you're bashing Bernie Sanders for? Or are you so wise and brave because you tweet, or you have a YouTube show, or you BBBB? There's nothing wrong with criticizing. There is something very wrong, and I will say dangerous, with radicalizing people's minds. And radicalizing very impressionable people to think that literally the father of the progressive movement of the 21st century, we're not talking 20th century, the 21st century, the reason we have a progressive movement, the reason Medicare for All is even a discussion, the reason Fight for 15 is now mainstream. Yes, we haven't seized power, and I will say, I think a good analogy, I think Bernie Sanders was Moses. He got us out of the desert. He couldn't get us to the promised land. But you know what? It ain't hard. It ain't easy to wake up the masses and get them out of the desert. Now we have to get to the promised land. And it's not just going to be through electoral politics, which Bernie always said. He always said, it's not me, it's us. It's from the ground up. Yes, electoral politics, but organizing too. So for those brave, wise warriors on YouTube and Twitter calling Bernie Sanders a fraud, this, that, whatever, you know what? Why don't you tell us what you've done that's so brave? Why don't you tell us what you've done? Have you been to Flint 15 times? Did you labor up hills at Standing Rock with a bad back? Were you 78 years old going around the country for the last 5 years? Did you go on the picket lines with McDonald's workers, Verizon workers, Disney workers? Why don't you shut the fuck up? You want to criticize Bernie? That's fine. But when you start calling heroes of the progressive movement sellouts and frauds and jokes and this and that, you become the joke. And I didn't even have any whiskey yet.
Jordan! Your dad's down.
Oh, my dad's here?
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I'm coming.
I'll tell him to wait.
No, I'm coming. So, a little bit of a transition. You might be a little let down. Because this is just a normal interview. But before this rant, I interviewed Brendan. Let me get his last name. Brendan Fisher with the Campaign Legal Center. Brendan Fisher has actually filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission over a dark money group that was created after Bernie won the New Hampshire primary. And this dark money group has not disclosed its donors. So we've all become a little numb. To dark money, but I think it's really important that we make sure that we make clear this is not normal and this is not ethical. Here's my interview with Brendan on the FEC complaint his group just filed. Hey, it's Jordan. I am delighted to be joined by Brendan Fisher. He is the Federal Reform Program Director at the Campaign Legal Center. And you and your group recently filed a FEC complaint, which I found interesting. We've kind of, in America, become numb to super PACs, and it's just kind of although I find it to be still outrageous, it's kind of baked into the cake. But you filed an FEC complaint specifically towards a group that seemed to only be in existence to stop Bernie Sanders' momentum during the primary. Can you kind of talk about what sparked you to file this complaint?
Sure. So the group was the Big Tent Project, and it was formed after Sanders won the New Hampshire primary. Its executive director, Jonathan Cott, who is a former aide to Joe Manchin of West Virginia, was pretty public. He talked to the press repeatedly, and he said that he was approached by donors who were concerned about Bernie Sanders' rise in the Democratic presidential primary. And in the course of a month, the group raised and spent $4.8 million, almost all of it on digital ads, pretty much all of it targeting voters in primary states. So they spent millions in Nevada, in South Carolina, in Super Tuesday states. And then after Sanders' path to the nomination narrowed, they went away. They stopped spending money. Jonathan Cott, the group's executive director, stopped talking to the press. The Facebook page has not been updated. The website has not been updated. They stopped tweeting. They just pretty much went away. After it became clear that Sanders was not going to sweep the Democratic primary states, Big Tent Project just ended. So the reason this matters is because Big Tent Project reported some of its spending to the FEC, but they never reported their donors. And under federal law, if a group has a major purpose of influencing elections, it's supposed to register as a political committee and it's supposed to disclose its donors. And Big Tent Project did not do that. So from our perspective, Big Tent Project was created for the specific purpose of stopping Bernie Sanders in the Democratic presidential primary. They spent $4.8 million in the course of a month, and then they stopped doing anything. The group clearly had the major purpose of influencing elections, and they violated the law by not registering with the FEC and not disclosing their donors.
And it kind of gets a little confusing because some PACs, my understanding is, don't have to release donor lists while others do. What are they registered as? A 501c4? Like what specifically is their stated purpose and mission?
Yeah, exactly. So they are a 501c4. So there's a few different kinds of entities that operate in the electoral sphere. You've got the candidates and their own campaigns, and candidates can only raise money within limits. You can only accept $2,800 per election from an individual. Then there's the parties. Parties have slightly higher limits, but there are still limits. Then there's super PACs. Super PACs can accept unlimited amounts of money. They can accept corporate money. But super PACs do disclose their donors. They're registered with the FEC as political committees. They file regular reports of all of their spending and all of their fundraising. Mm-hmm. And then the other entity, the other groups out there are dark money groups. And these are primarily nonprofits, usually a 501c4 or 501c6.
And I mean, it's kind of obvious to me, Bernie wins New Hampshire, Iowa, it was a mess, but basically the narrative was he won. So he's got, obviously the Democratic Party and the media were kind of freaking out at that point because Bernie was up in the polls in Nevada too. And Biden, who by all extent, with the free media that these candidates get from CNN, MSNBC, elsewhere, I think he came in fourth and then fifth. I mean, he didn't even go to Nevada. He went to South Carolina. So to the naked eye, it kind of just looks like, this super PAC was created right after New Hampshire as a hit job on Bernie Sanders, and we have no idea who was part of that hit job. It could be, it's been viewed as, Joe Biden's campaign has been very kind to Bernie Sanders after he dropped out. They're working well together. Media reports have stated, President Obama, gave Sanders space to, make up his mind before he dropped out. There's a lot of media and framing out there that Obama world and Biden's campaign have been kind to him. But really, for all we know, the donors to this PAC could have been heavyweights in Obama's circle and Biden's circle. Am I wrong?
Yeah, well, we have no idea where the money came from, and that's why dark money is so problematic because the money could come from it could have come from Republicans, it could have come from Democrats, it could have come from the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, for all we know, it could have come from overseas. It could be another example of Russia or Iran or China or some other country trying to influence U.S. elections, and where there's no donor disclosure, you can't detect whether the contributions that funded the anti-Sanders ads were even legal. So yeah, we have no idea where the money came from. All we know is what Jonathan Cobb told the press, and that is that there were a group of donors who were concerned about Sanders' rise after he won New Hampshire. So they raised $4.8 million in the course of about a month and spent it all on anti-Sanders ads.
Right. And can I ask you a broader question? Because, I think most people that pay attention to this stuff realize it's a complete sham, and these campaigns and super PACs coordinate, maybe not in writing, maybe not on the calendar having meetings, but when WikiLeaks released their emails, it showed Hillary Clinton's campaign had some coordination with Priorities USA. And it just seems like these are very flimsy laws because there's never any penalties handed out. I mean, there's been Republican PACs have coordinated with campaigns. And the FEC in general, we know, is, like everything else, a highly politicized body. So other than overturning Citizens United, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but does the FEC actually take these complaints seriously?
Yeah. Well, so there was a lot of coordination or near coordination during the Democratic presidential primary. A number of the candidates did have super PACs supporting them, and they worked to varying degrees with one another. The Buttigieg campaign worked very closely with Vote Vets, which was the super PAC supporting their campaign, and we actually filed a complaint against Vote Vets in the Buttigieg campaign. Because a Buttigieg campaign staffer tweeted out a pretty explicit request for the super PAC to run ads in Nevada, and then the super PAC followed through. And that violates the law. So I think your specific question is, is the FEC going to do anything about this? And it remains to be seen. There have been instances where the FEC has enforced the law. There have been a number of instances where the FEC has deadlocked and dismissed complaints, but we as a nonprofit watchdog organization do have some opportunities to hold the FEC accountable and to sue them if they fail to take action on the complaint or if they unlawfully dismiss the complaint. And with this Big Tent Project complaint in particular, we are prepared to do that.
Mm-hmm. And has the Big Tent Project said anything? Why they won't disclose their donors? Are they just kind of ignoring the complaint and hoping it doesn't catch on?
I've not heard them say anything public yet about the complaint.
Okay, interesting. And overall, I know you're a lawyer, but let's just talk the actual effect of this. Joe Biden. Your complaint isn't about this, but for example, Joe Biden. Advertising analysis said he received $100 million of free advertising between South Carolina and Super Tuesday. And when you look at the exit polls, a lot of Biden voters made up their mind in the final days before Super Tuesday. So although these ads are everybody gets sick of seeing them on TV, they do work because most people tune in, kind of like a couple days, a week before, do some Googling, and you watch ads. So do you think that these ads, not to play pundit, had an effect, particularly in South Carolina, where none of the polls really showed Bernie Sanders losing by that much?
Yeah, well, it's certainly it's impossible to point to any single factor as decisive in an election, but clearly $4.8 million is a lot of money, and almost all of that money, I think about $4.6 million of the $4.8 million spent by Big Tent Project went towards digital ads. And digital ads are highly targeted and they can be highly personalized. And $4.8 million and they're also cheap. Digital ads are cheap, so $4.6 million in digital ads is a lot of ads. So I think it's fair to say that the amount spent and the way that they spent it did have some level of impact. The other interesting thing about Big Tent Project, and we put out a report about this about a month ago, as I mentioned, the group spent 4.6 million on digital ads, and we now have archives of certain political ads run on certain platforms. So Facebook and Google and Snapchat have all created archives of the ads that they host. And typically, we think of most political advertising happening on Facebook and happening on Google. But when we went to the archives, when we went to the Facebook and Google archives to see what Big Tent Project had actually spent and what the ads actually looked like, we found that only about 4% of the FEC reported anti-Sanders ads from Big Tent Project were appearing in the Facebook and Google and Snapchat archives. So around 96% of Big Tent Project's digital ad spending is entirely unaccounted for, which probably means that it was running on less accountable platforms that have not created these archives. So Hulu, for example, Sling, streaming services that host political ads do not create archives, so we can't see what those ads were and what they look like. So that means we really don't know what kind of messages Big Tent Project may have been distributing to voters in these primary states, or whether the messages were even accurate.
And it's also, that goes to a whole broader problem, because we could have a whole nother interview on Facebook, which I think should be a public utility. Well, is a public utility. But it doesn't seem like Facebook has any. Does Facebook and these other platforms mandate that the donors are disclosed? Because it looks like if you're able to do ads on Facebook and other platforms as Big Tent Project, if they're not disclosing their donors, and that's illegal with the FEC for television ads, why shouldn't it be illegal for digital ads?
Yeah, so Facebook does not require groups to disclose their donors. And another...
Probably because their donors give money to Facebook, but that's a different story.
Another interesting and shady detail about Big Tent Project that we found is that Facebook was effectively allowing the group to run ads under an entirely different name. So Big Tent Project had the Facebook page, Big Tent Project. They were running, six figures in Facebook ads under the name Big Tent Project. But then we found another page, not called Big Tent Project, instead called I'm forgetting. United We Stand, I believe. And those ads, also similarly attack Sanders, were similarly targeted to voters in primary states. But there was really limited indication, at least on the face of the ad, that they were paid for by Big Tent Project. The group was called United We Succeed. I'm sorry, I just blinked on the name. So Big Tent Project running Facebook ads under its own name, but then also running ads under the name United We Succeed, which really gave little to no indication on the face of the ad that they were paid for by Big Tent Project Fund, which again, has very limited information about it in the first place. So there were sort of like layers of secrecy on top of layers of obfuscation.
Jesus. All right. Well, I hope we stay in touch for when the FEC responds to you. I think, honestly, part of our job in the media is to make sure it does not get normalized. These, frankly, in some cases, money laundering schemes. It really seems like they just created this hit pack on Sanders, which, is legal as long as you disclose the donors. We deserve to know who is behind these donors. Is it people in Biden's orbit right now? President Obama's administration? Trump? Who knows? But the people deserve to know. So thank you, Brendan Fisher with the Campaign Legal Center. We'll be in touch.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Status Coup.
That was Brendan Fisher with the Campaign Legal Center. He has filed a complaint against the Big Tent Project, which was this dark money group against Bernie Sanders that has not disclosed its donors. I'd like to know who their donors were. 4.8 million after New Hampshire. I bet you there's some people in Obama's circle that donated to that. I bet you there's some people in Biden's circle that donated to that. We'll see. We'll see. So, got some super chats while we were airing that interview. Thank you, Carl Knight. $20. Besides you, who are two of Anat's favorite journalists? What a question. What do you think?
Oh, I answered in the chat, but Rukmini
Kalamaki, New York Times.
Has nothing to do with me working with her.
Terrorism reporter, right?
Or using my work in reports. And Suad McKenna at the Washington Post. She's actually a journalist.
Suad
McKenna? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it.
And the reason is because she works in, let's just say, counterterrorism. But she's not part of the deep state, or I wouldn't be with her. She's a hardcore progressive. We got her off the Elizabeth Warren cliff. She was originally for Warren. You know, little couple encounters with me. Back to the righteous side of Bernie. And I would say, well, we did like Bernie Blackout. We watched that last night, which was a Vice documentary, which I was kind of surprised. Like, you know, could Vice not have talked to me? I was on the campaign trail. I digress. Thank you, Carl Knight, for the super chat. Blah, 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 blah. Jaybird D, $14.99. Bernie has been amazing. He is a marvel, and so are you. If he only demonstrated in no uncertain terms that it's possible to run a successful campaign with only grassroots donations. I agree. And by the way, just to like button up, so people said, what about Jen? Duh. Obviously she loves Jen. To wrap up this whole rant I went on, it's really, to me, less about Bernie as it is a toxic mentality that has brewed in the progressive movement. As progressives, we got to stop extreme purity tests. I think there should be purity tests for the progressive movement. And to me, purity test is just a bullshit term for ethics and morals. Ethics and morals. That's what a purity test is. We hold our public servants to certain ethical and moral standards. But purity tests can go a little too far to the extremes. So you're going to have to realize whether it's Bernie Sanders, whether it becomes Nina Turner or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez picking up the mantle. You're not going to always, 100% of the time, agree with any politician. And that's a good thing. You also shouldn't 100% of the time agree with me or other hosts. You should have critical thinking skills. You shouldn't want to only hear views you agree with. Now, if Bernie Sanders or any of them started taking super PAC money, started doing shady things, started basically doing things that were the polar opposite of what he said he stood for, then we could have a discussion. But just because somebody is strategically doing things in a different way than you think they need to be done doesn't automatically make somebody a sellout. A sellout is somebody who literally is a fraud. A sellout is somebody who literally sells you something and then becomes something entirely different. Bernie Sanders endorsing Biden when he said from the jump he was going to endorse the Democratic nominee is not a sellout. That's just doing what you said he was going to do. Now, Bernie Sanders not organizing his troops, his massive email list right now, criticize him, yes. I've been criticizing him. Not showing up for that vote. I'd like to know why he didn't show up for that vote. Yes, criticize him. It's fair game. Bernie's not beyond criticism. I've lost criticism. I mean, I've lost subscribers when I went too hard on him during the campaign. But these people that call him a fraud and call him a this, you know what? I'd like to know what's so great that you've done. Because it's very easy to rage tweet that people are frauds and sellouts and this and that. Very easy to host YouTube shows or Twitch shows or Facebook shows or wherever the hell you host a show. Call people sellouts and frauds and this and that. Yeah, to get you clicks and it excites people and maybe get you some Patreon subscribers. But a lot harder to actually have a brain, offer your audience a little nuance. Maybe try and understand the person's strategy, even if you disagree with it. I think before YouTube hosts or tweeters start calling people frauds and sellouts, maybe go do something yourself. That's so brave. That's it, folks. Gotta go. I have to do an interview. I will be live on Sunday, around noon Eastern time for our marathon live stream. We got a bunch of interviews lined up for Sunday. Obviously, if something major breaks before Sunday, I will be live if it's a major thing. Right now, we finish $101,296. So, boy, what I just love between today, tomorrow, and Sunday. What if we could get to $102,000? We are, what is that, $704 away, $704 away from hitting $102,000 and less than $9,000 away from hitting $110,000, which is our GoFundMe goal. Thank you for watching me. Thank you for listening to my rant. Definitely, if you can, totally understand if you can't. Times are tough for a lot of people, but if you can, leave some dough in the GoFundMe. We would really appreciate it. And also, did I miss one? I think I missed something. No, I didn't. Also, if you're a candidate or you know a good candidate, email info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com. Jen and I will be doing more interviews with progressive candidates in the coming weeks. info@statuscoup.com. Thank you for watching. See you Sunday around noon Eastern time. And remember, if you haven't joined our text list, that's how you'll know when we're live, because YouTube doesn't always notify. Text COUP to 370-370. It won't cost you anything. Text COUP to 370-370. Peace out.